So on election night, Fox News called Arizona for Biden. The AP soon followed. And one county there we've had our eye on in particular, Maricopa County, has been the key to watch during this presidential contest.
That's right. So right now, according to the Associated Press, Biden has eked past the president in Arizona, less than 1.5% margin, but votes are still being counted, a lot of votes. So joining us from Arizona itself to talk about what's happening now in the Grand Canyon State, Hill correspondent Reid Wilson. Good to see you, Reid. Reid, tell us a little bit about what's going on in Maricopa County. I believe that is where you are right now in terms of the votes and where things remain to be counted and more. And do you think that Fox maybe jumped the gun here? What do you think?
So Joe Biden leads the state by about 47,000 votes. He leads in Maricopa County by 64,000 votes. And on election night, for all the viewers who were watching back then, I told you that no Republican in modern history, only one Republican in modern history has won statewide in Arizona without carrying Maricopa County. So basically, if you're a Republican, you got to win Maricopa to win the whole state. At the moment, with that 64,000 vote lead here, there are about 180,000 ballots left to count, and about 80,000 ballots left to count in the rural parts of the state. So those rural areas are probably going to favor President Trump by a pretty significant margin. The votes in Maricopa, unlike a lot of the other votes that we're seeing counted around the rest of the country, are probably also going to favor President Trump, albeit by a slimmer margin. These votes that are being counted are ones that were dropped off late. So basically, the vast majority of Arizona voters got a ballot, and if they didn't get it in the mail in time, they could just take it back to the polling place. And I ran into a dozen of these voters as I stood outside a polling place on Tuesday. They just come back, walk in the door, drop off the ballot, walk out. No muss, no fuss. They get to vote at home and drop it off at the polls and know it gets counted. Those are the ballots that are left to count. And that's why President Trump is likely to do better among this batch of ballots than he is among late ballots in other states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, places like that.
Yeah, so this is a really key point because we see in a lot of the other states, the mail-in ballots have been overwhelmingly for Biden in Georgia, overwhelmingly for Biden in Pennsylvania, even beyond, I think, the margin that people expected, and certainly beyond the margin he needed to take the lead. Here, what we've seen from the ballots that have come in, and I believe we're expected to get another batch at 11 a.m. Eastern, is that they favor President Trump but by a relatively narrow margin. Does it look to you, and can we say whether or not he's getting enough to pick up that, what is Biden leading by now, like 48,000 votes? Is President Trump getting enough to overcome that margin based on the current trajectory?
So 47,000 votes, let's call it 50 for round numbers. Back of the napkin means he's got to get 50,000 more than Biden would. So that would be approximately, 115,000 votes to 65,000 votes. That's a pretty big gap. That's almost a 2-to-1 margin that Trump would need to win these votes by. I have not seen indications that he's winning by that much. Now, with those rural votes that have to come in, he could make up that margin there. But it is not. Trump would have to win those votes by a really big margin to end up winning the state of Arizona. It is going to be close. There are still Democratic votes left to count. There are still Republican votes left to count. And let's put it this way: this is a state where President Trump definitely does not want to stop the count.
Yeah, I think that's right, Reid. So this is the interesting thing really around all of the margins. As you said, a 2-to-1 margin is slightly higher than the 57% or so that we saw come out of Maricopa County last night. In terms of a timeline, what are we looking at here in terms of actually knowing when the hell we're going to have results?
Well, so let's see. Officials say there are about 242. So we got 260 left to count, something like that. That can be done today. I assume that we're going to know most of these finals by Friday. If I recall correctly, as a matter of fact, I do remember the Arizona Senate race 2 years ago, where Kyrsten Sinema beat Martha McSally. That race ended on election night with McSally up by about 2.5 points, and Friday McSally conceded when she was down by about 2.5 points after the late ballots were counted. In that instance, the late ballots benefited Democrats, but I remember where I was when I heard that McSally had conceded, and that was on a Friday. So yeah, I mean, this is basically how Arizona elections go, right? Everybody votes on Tuesday, and we know by Friday.
Gotcha. And final question for you, Reid. As we expect this is going to be close, it could go either way. Maybe Joe Biden has a little bit of an edge right now, but certainly we've had a lot of discussion on this show and across the media about President Trump's improved margins among Latino voters. Arizona seems like a state where that didn't happen, where the Democrats were able to hold on to their margins with Latinos, similar margins to what Hillary Clinton got back in 2016. Do you have insights into why they were more successfully able to hold on to that coalition in the state of Arizona than they were certainly in a place like Florida?
How fortuitous that you ask. I literally just pulled that data yesterday. So there are 2 counties in Arizona that are majority Hispanic. And either of you want to guess how many of them President Trump improved his vote share on?
0?
Both of them.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, President Trump improved his vote share in majority Hispanic counties in all 85 majority Hispanic counties around the country. I'm sorry, not all. Take out 2 of them, Behar County, Texas, which is San Antonio, and Ford County, Kansas. But aside from that, across the country, I think one thing we certainly saw is that President Trump did better among Hispanic voters in Hispanic neighborhoods, especially when those neighborhoods were rural. The 2 counties here in Arizona where he did better, Santa Cruz County and Yuma County, are very rural counties. They're pretty Democratic, so President Trump still lost both of them, but he did better this time. Oh, no, I'm sorry, he won Yuma County, but he did better in the other 2 he did better in both than he did 4 years ago. But if you take a look at Hispanic-heavy precincts here in the Phoenix Metroplex, you will see that President Trump did worse on a precinct-by-precinct level than he did 4 years ago. I think we're seeing a similar divide in the Hispanic community as we are among white Americans. We're seeing an urban-rural split, and rural Hispanics are much more willing to vote for President Trump than urban Hispanics are, which is why you see, for example, Behar County, in the heart of downtown San Antonio, Trump getting a lower vote share than he did 4 years ago, versus some of the counties in the Rio Grande Valley down in South Texas. I mean, forget Miami. The Rio Grande Valley is the real story here. I mean, those are people of Mexican descent, and they swung to President Trump by 10, 15, 20 points on Tuesday.
Yeah, really interesting.
In some cases,
I thought you were
more.
referring to Arizona, but yeah, what a crazy story. Really interesting.
Look, Arizona, those 2 counties there, he improved his share by 7 points and 5 points respectively. So that's not nothing.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating dynamic. Reid, thank you so much for breaking this down and being with us all week. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Reid. Thanks for all your hard work. Next, Team Rising is going to talk about the stakes in the Georgia Senate races. That's when Rising continues.